Welcome everybody to the One State Solution podcast. My name is Alon,
I'm Elik.
and we're both anti-Zionist, even though it says Israel on our passports and Jewish on our Israeli identity cards. And today we want to speak about the subject of normalization. And Elik, you want to explain about this subject and present it?
Yeah, and we were talking about it a lot the last couple of weeks because of the fuss that was around the No Other Land movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because we discussed it in our lives, but like basically it was people were discussing if is it a victory for the pro-Palestine movement that the story of the people of Masafer Yatta got to the awareness of the world, and maybe many people who were not aware of this um, of the Palestinian struggle, now we will get curious and check more into it. And but it was also, there was a lot of claim that this movie is actually part of normalization, and the BDS movement, the boycott, divestments and sanctions movement, which is a Palestinian movement,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is very important movement in the struggle for Palestinian liberation. They put out an announcement that this, they didn't call to boycott it, but they said that there is some kind of normalization that happened in this movie. And we already discussed the topic of that specific movie, but we thought that it's opportunity to go deeper into the subject of normalization, both in the case of Palestine, but also in larger contexts of how normalization is a force of oppression in many areas in our lives, and how can we spot it, how can we resist it, and what are our options of resisting it, if if it's even possible to resist it.
Yes. Yes. So I want to say on a very general note that this is a line that we've been taking more and more in this podcast. There are triggers that happen, and we sometimes speak about the specific, current issues in live sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But then we find ourselves more and more wanting to dedicate the episodes of this specific podcasts to going deeply into the subjects that arise from these triggers. We,
Mm-hmm.
we, we want to take what happened as an opportunity to discuss, first of all, amongst ourselves, not on camera. We discuss these subjects heavily, and then we get to a lot of interesting conclusions, or conclusions that we find interesting. And we feel like there is both a necessity and an opportunity to go deep into these subjects and deconstruct them. And we feel like this is something that's missing in the discussion around issues of justice and oppression, and specifically this subject of normalization. I found myself in the last few weeks of discussing this subject heavily, realizing that maybe it's not an exaggeration to say that it is at the core of all this issue of oppression and systems of hierarchy, systems of control, and I feel like it's not just a tool that systems of oppression and control and hierarchies and supremacy use in order to maintain themselves and increase their power, but maybe the main tool
Mm-hmm.
that they use, or even in some sense like the only tool. Like you can go really far with this. I think that when you really discuss seriously this subject of normalization, it connects to everything else we've been talking about in this podcast for the last over a year now, which is crazy to think about that we've been doing this for over a year. and and I feel like it's a really really important subject, and I also feel that this subject is not discussed enough or not discussed uh, deeply enough and in a nuanced enough way in all struggles of liberation against oppression. And this is why I think it's very important that we do this discussion as delicately, as nuanced, and as deeply as possible.
Yeah, and I thought like what we wanted to do is we want to go into the BDS definition of what normalization is.
Mm-hmm.
From that, go to the more like general topic of what is normalization,
Mm-hmm.
and then go back and because I think this movement from the local to the more broad and then back in this back and forth
Yes.
is really important because I think sometimes people are super invested in one specific struggle
Mm-hmm.
and they lose the sense of what are we really doing, and if you don't see how it operates in other forms of oppression, you also don't know how to relate to it when it happens in the specific struggle that you care about at the moment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because of course we cannot fight all of the fights at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is not possible, but in principle we resist oppression. We don't resist the oppression of the Palestinians
Mm-hmm.
only, and we resist the fact that we are invested in this specific struggle is because we think it's important, because we are born in this society. There are many reasons, but in the core we want a fair, just, equal, and free world for everybody.
Yes.
And we need to remember this. I think
Mm-hmm.
like this notion is important because sometimes I feel that people are invested in specific struggle, but they don't have this sense of connection to these more core values. And then suddenly you see that there's something not effective and not deep also in their struggle in the
Yes.
specific
Yes, yes,
thing.
this is something I realized when I keep moving back and forth between the two most important, struggles that I am part of, which is one, the struggle against the system of Zionism, and the other, the struggle against carnism and the non-human animal Holocaust. So I want to liberate everyone. So I want to liberate Palestinians who are under Zionist control and oppression, and I want to liberate non-human animals who are under the oppression of humans and the meat and animal products industries. And I find myself so when I compare these two struggles and compare and contrast, and I can see like the deep underlying characteristics of all struggles against oppression. Of course, you can add the struggle against the oppression of capitalism, of patriarchy, of all kinds of systems. And I feel that when I talk to vegans who are Zionists, or when I talk to pro-Palestine people who are carnists, I see that something there is not deep, not only in the way that vegan Zionists treat. Of course, vegan Zionists are not deep in their understanding of the oppression of Zionism, and that Zionism causes Palestinians. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I think vegan Zionists are not even deep in their struggle against the oppression of non-human animals. And vice versa. I think that when you are pro-Palestine and a carnist, then something is not deep in the way that you struggle against Zionism as well.
Even if you're a Palestinian under oppression,
I think so. I think so.
I don't know if I agree with you.
Okay, but this is a different subject. But
Yeah.
but again, okay. Let me just say the point. The point is that the more we understand the deep issues, and this is enabled by looking at the broad issue of oppression, um, then your struggle is more effective and more correct. This is something I will stand by, completely.
Yeah, and I also see that, you know, you are invested in these two struggles, but in general, you're against oppression and killing. And it's not that you were less against killing of people in some other place that maybe both of us are not aware about, because there are so many examples of oppression. And but it's very useful to draw parallels and also contrasts, because each case has its particular characteristic, but there's also many ways of similarities, and I think what combines them all is the subject of normalization. This is always there. That's why we wanted to.
Yes.
Every time there is a genocide, every time there is a form of colonialism, occupation, subjugation of one group by other, the group who doing the oppression, it's being normalized in that society to such a level that people participate in things that if you would ask them, do you support killing children, for example, they would say, of course,
Of
no,
course not.
of
Yes,
course
of
not.
course not.
And without understanding normalization, we wouldn't understand this contrast, right? Why so many people in our society who would genuinely, it's not people who say that, like if Zionists were like, we don't care about morality, and that's how would they view themselves, it would be way easier. And a lot of Zionists would say, I care about all babies. They don't say explicit racist things, right? And still, most of them, like there are more people speaking out now, but still the vast majority of Israeli society is either supporting it or living in some kind of state of denial.
Yes.
That
like cognitive dissonance that is just repressed.
Yeah. And like I told you how yesterday I was speaking with a friend and she told me like stuff about like racism in the Palestinian society against women. But putting aside that it's a racist thought in for itself because it doesn't come from deep knowledge.
You mean bigotry again, sexism, not racism.
Yeah, she said that there is a lot of sexism and that Arab men are chauvinistic.
Yes.
And I should have confronted her with that. Like, maybe, I don't know. I don't know Arab society that well. I know that there is things that for sure they have their problems. But men...
Like all humans are sexist. Patriarchy exists all over human society. This is just... It's ridiculous to say that one specific society is sexist because all of humanity is sexist.
Right. But, you know, just for the sake of the argument, let's say that Palestinian society is very chauvinistic.
Yeah.
But you have been committing genocide for a year and a half, and occupation and land theft and so many things that are far worse than everything you can say about them. But you can still say like, but we a society who have values and they don't, you know, like...
Or our values are good and their values are bad.
Yeah, so there's a system that makes people be that the crimes that their society is doing is completely transparent, and then they can still hold the image that we are liberals, we want freedom for all. Now, it's not that they completely not aware, but still there is such a dissonance that it makes you ask what makes it possible.
And we think that normalization is, I don't know if the answer, but certainly an answer to this question, and maybe the most important answer to this question. I want to say two things around this. So one thing is that you said that normalization exists in the society of the oppressors, of the privileged group.
Yeah.
I think that normalization works on everybody. This is something that's worth recognizing about normalization, that it also works. It is such a powerful mechanism that it also works on the ones being oppressed. Okay? And we will touch on this later on, but it's not exclusive to, maybe it's more important to normalize things in the eyes of the oppressors, but it's also important for the system to, I'm saying important, not objectively important for the system to maintain its power, to normalize these things or its existence or its mechanisms also in the eyes of the ones being oppressed, so that they cooperate and collaborate with the system to some extent, because this is also something that the system uses. And now it leads me to another broad thing that I feel it's important to say. Many of the criticisms that you and I got after discussing this issue of normalization, specifically in the context of the movie No Other Land, was some kind of like people are, I don't know, they seem emotionally hurt by the fact that we are saying things that they perceive to be negative about this movie, about the creators of this movie, especially about the people of Masafariata, okay? Who, who are the real subjects of this movie and also the real creators of this movie, okay? So it is important for me to say that when we talk about this subject of normalization, our point is not to say that people who participate in normalization are bad people or even that they're doing something bad. This thing of moral judgment is not the thing that we're trying to do. What we are trying to do is talk about how these mechanisms, first of all, exist, second of all, how they work, and third, how important they are for the systems, how powerful they are in affecting our actions, our behaviors, and even our perception. And it bears repeating that we are all normalizers. All of us are part of society. Society is built on norms. Norms are very powerful and they affect all of us in ways every single second of our existence. So saying that some action is an action of normalization is not a condemnation of this action. It's just, in some sense, it's impossible to avoid, like we started saying. It's impossible to avoid normalizing. But we feel that it's very, very important to be aware of how we are normalizing or how we are supporting certain norms, and to be mindful of our actions. Do they are they affected by norms, and how not are they affected by norms, how they are affected by norms and how they affect norms. We feel like the more awareness there is to this, the more effective and better our actions can be.
Yeah, because we're all. I want to, maybe it's time to give some definition or something, or because
Yeah.
I think like we can read the BDS definition.
Yes, but let's first say what we think.
Okay.
So you want to start by saying how you see this issue of normalization. Maybe we can start from the most deep and general concept.
Okay. So basically, so you talked about norms, right?
Mhm.
And our human interaction in many ways are shaped by norms, which is kind of a non-written laws, right? Norms is not a law that a state issues. It's some kind of.
I think laws are a kind of norm. They are norms that have been institutionalized,
Yeah.
and I don't remember. There is a term for this, like codified norms
Yeah.
that have been codified. But norms exist also outside of the system of laws.
Right, but it's interesting how they interact, because right, many laws that are let's say oppressive and violent are what enforces them, that it's deep rooted in the norms, and the norm is to and obeying the law of the state is also a norm for
Yes.
itself, right?
Yes, it bears emphasizing that there are norms that support the very existence of norms. It goes,
Yeah.
it's turtles all the way down. Okay.
Yeah. and it's actually it's based on our wish to be part of society, part of a community. I believe there could be even a evolutionary biological explanation why is it so
There must
strong.
be. This is obvious to me that there is an evolutional psychology or a societal argument here. The way, any way you want to say it, there's probably
and
technical language for this.
And basically, we would say it's what dictates our accepted behavior in society, right? If I want to most generalize it.
Yes.
Like the area of what is allowed, what you're allowed to do. Now, if I will go, and most of us have this deep inner cup or regulator in our voice that the moment we do something that outside our we feel fear, we feel anxiety.
Yes.
We feel we shouldn't do it.
Yes.
And it's usually because we fear some reaction from the people around us.
Yes, but also there is something internal here operating. Like norms are always internalized by our psyche.
Yeah, some people wouldn't do even not unnormal stuff when they're alone. Like it goes so deep.
Yes. Yes. I want to say something general that we're not saying it's an important question to ask, and I think we both would say that we don't know what the answer is. Are norms good or bad? We're not saying here that norms are bad. Because we also recognize that norms are a tool that allows society to function in a way like, for example, when norms are present, we can expect certain things and behave accordingly. It makes life more predictable, and predictability is also something that has some merit. Okay, so we're not saying norms are bad, but I think we are saying that norms are very powerful, and anything that is powerful can be used as a tool by the systems of power and oppression.
Yeah. It's question if norms are necessary will always be connected to systems of oppression, or you can have society that is free, but there's still existing norms because you need to communicate.
Yes.
You need to, like you said, you need to feel that you can expect how people will react otherwise like life would be very difficult to handle, right? If I would go to buy something in the store and suddenly I don't know.
Yes, but okay, you say I go to buy something in the store.
That's also
money is a norm. Money is one of the most deep norms of human society at this point, right?
Yeah.
So what is money? Money is not a physical thing, right? The paper is not. When the economy of Venezuela collapsed. So a couple of years later, I was traveling in South America, and I was in Colombia. I didn't go to Venezuela, but I saw a lot of people from Venezuela in the street. Okay, and they were very poor. Okay, and they tried to, get any money that they could because they didn't have any money. But they did have the bills, the Colombian bills, but the bills were worthless. So what I saw was a lot of people who made art using the Venezuelan money. They would do origami with the Venezuelan. They had, I don't know, millions of pesos or whatever the coin is. I think it was pesos. And they would make origami with it. They would make sculptures with it, and they would sell it for a few Colombian pesos. So what is my point? My point is that the pieces of paper, we all know this, are not worth anything inherently.
Yeah.
The thing that is worth something is the norm that these pieces of paper represent.
Right, but it feels like with money, even if I decide I don't accept this norm because everybody around it accept it, so I have no choice, and it's kind of a game theory thing because it will... Only if many people will decide together that they don't accept the norm of money that could make any change, and somehow it never happens, and it's another question.
But what you said now is true of all norms. This is the thing, that it's true about all norms. You can decide that you don't follow the norms, but it doesn't make the norms not real, and it doesn't make this mechanism of enforcing norms not act on you.
it shows us how our existence as people who live in society is always, it's codependent, it's interdependent. Like you cannot, we don't, because we don't live alone, and most of us are not know how to sustain ourselves alone. Um, so we
You
have
can say that it's impossible to sustain.
you have to cope with norms now. But
Yeah.
what happens when you discover that actually the thing with norms and with that we are all taught that for like we said before, that killing is bad, right? We were
Yeah.
all and it's accepted as a norm, like you.
And this is a good norm. This
It's
is
a
a norm that I would love to have throughout society, and I would love it to be the most basic norm of existence, that killing is just wrong. That would be wonderful. That would be a dream scenario, right?
And it is happening in some sense that we don't go in the street and we see killing people only killing each other or killing as accepted behavior. But then, for example, in our society, it's very accepted members of society can go on a plan and kill much more, commit much more killing than if I even take a gun and kill one person outside. And if I go now and kill somebody, I would be treated as a horrible murderer, but a soldier or a pilot can kill way more people, and he will be a respected member of society in this society, for example.
Yes.
And because in this society, this killing has been normalized. It's been normalized to go to the army, and it's been normalized that the moment you're in the army, the rules of what is killing and what is not killing change completely.
What is murder and what is not murder?
Yeah.
They would admit that they killed, maybe.
Sometimes they even don't
Yeah.
admit that they even killed somebody. But
Yeah.
yeah, they don't know. They just press a button. And
Yeah, I just pressed a button. What do you want from me?
I didn't kill. I just pressed a button.
Yes,
That's
yes.
how they. But some of them know. The snipers know that they kill for sure.
Yes, they would say I killed, but they wouldn't say I murdered.
I saw there was an article that somebody talked with two snipers, and one said like after 400 I stopped counting.
Yes, yes, very.
This
killing.
man, I know that his psyche is fucked forever.
Yes, and this leads me to another point that we wanted to emphasize, which is that following norms in a blind way is something that can and does corrupt the soul of those following the norms. And I think let me use this as a way to again generalize. So okay, we define ourselves as anarchists, okay, and I think we are both at the process of
Discovering what
Yes.
it is.
discovering what anarchism even is. And one of the things that happened in our discussions is that we saw how anarchism is very much related to individual power. Not individualism, because individualism is something very corrupted by the systems of control, and we can open this and never stop talking about this as well. But that something about being connected to yourself, to your true self, to your soul, to your conscience, to whatever you want to call it, to your morality, is something very important in anarchist praxis. Okay, like if you're not connected to yourself, then there's something you cannot be an anarchist. You cannot truly be an anarchist, and I think this is another very powerful way of looking at it, okay? So, if you just blindly cooperate with norms, and we will discuss how this happens and why this happens in depth, but if you just comply with norms blindly, then it means that you are disconnected from your own conscience, from your own morality, from your own soul. It corrupts your internal structure, and then you cannot be an anarchist, okay? So the question is, let's go back, the question is, in an anarchist world, in the world that we imagine as anarchists, do norms even exist, right? Is there even a place for norms in an anarchist world? So I have some thoughts about this, but do you have like an answer for this question? What do you think about this question?
I think there will still be patterns of behavior. I think this is unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
And the question if the predictability of people's behavior is it means that it's norm or it's just some kind of self perpetuating thing that we don't be. Because I practice this method that we a bit did, right? That is, it's makes me behave in very unnormal ways.
Yes.
I suddenly talk to somebody and then I lie down on the floor, or
Yes.
I start to dance, and many people look at me like I'm weird. But I see that
I just want to say, I also sometimes find myself looking at you like you're weird when you're doing it.
yeah,
Okay, and maybe I will talk about this in a moment.
yeah, and I will. I don't know. I talked about it in the live we did, but maybe I should explain. I'm working on something that I want to start also teach. It's a form of kind of meditation and movement that it's based on listening to our body, to the signals we get in our nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
in our body. And I discovered that when you listen, you see that your body always wants to do stuff that the norms doesn't allow us to do.
Yep.
And then I started just to allow myself to do it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are accepting it. For some people, it's very weird. But I see that it's challenging the norms. People who knows me get used to it, and it becomes normal because they
Yes.
see I can still.
Normal for you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I think we have ability to expand what is normal, and I think the anarchist way of being is we always want to challenge. It's like we can say, okay, we are anti-Zionist who live in a Zionist society, so we just never talk about it because we cope and we keep our freedom in the mind.
Yes.
But if we have guts and we challenge, we raise the bar of what is permissible to say and to think.
Which is exactly what was said about No Other Land.
Yes, and when you what you told me about like that you were learning Arabic and they were talking about like normalizing eating meat when they taught you stuff. Do you want to
Yes,
talk about it?
I will tell. I will tell about this experience. So I started learning Arabic both on Duolingo. I learned the literary form of Arabic, and in a course with a group, I'm learning Palestinian Arabic, and the two languages are quite different. There's a lot of similarity, but also a lot of difference.
The literary and the
Yes, it's very different actually. But anyway, so we sometimes read texts, okay, and in one of the lessons, this was a couple of weeks ago. We were like simulating ordering food in a restaurant, okay, and we were going over words, okay. So one of the word was lahm, okay, which is meat, okay, and I asked the teacher how to say murder in Arabic, because it bothered me that this word just was there as something completely normal. Meat, okay, it's normal. So I was like, how to say murder? I asked very innocently, and then he said qatal. So I said lahm qatal, meat is murder, and people around felt, I don't know, some of them felt uncomfortable, and one guy, okay, let me connect this. Look at how it's connected. A few minutes before, we were divided into pairs, and I was talking to him. This guy, he's an older guy, a Jewish Israeli man, like 60, 70 years old, and of Middle Eastern descent, I think, Arab descent. Okay, he would not admit it, but he is a Jewish Arab. Okay, and
like you.
yes, I am half Arab.
Yeah.
So, on the wall of our Arabic teacher, who is Palestinian, but he doesn't call himself Palestinian because
So
he has
many-
been.
he's into normalizing.
Yes. Look at how it's like
Normalizing
everywhere.
Arab.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so
An Arab that doesn't call himself an Arab. This is also part of normalization, by the way. They don't see it, but Yeah.
I think the moment you start looking at it
Yeah.
through these, filters, it's like
Yeah.
you cannot unsee all the norms that are around you all the time, all the
Yeah.
time, all the time.
You can say that the whole Zionist project is people had to erase their heritage and to normalize themselves into a new society. I'm also like, European Jew, and they wanted to pretend like they're Saba, they
Yeah.
are born from the land. They have
Yeah.
no like to erase their, yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry,
there was
that
a
was,
map of Palestine,
Uh-huh.
Israel, on the wall.
Uh-huh.
Okay? And he asked me, I don't know why he asked me. I think it was some kind of test
Uh-huh.
because he felt something weird about me.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about anything, okay? He asked, what is this? And I said, this is Palestine. And he was like, oh, okay. He was like, no, Israel. I was like, no, Palestine. And so already I challenged the way that the norms worked in his mind. And then when I said lahm katal, at this moment he was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? And I was like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Obvious. And he was like, oh, you mean it's wrong to kill animals, to eat meat? And I didn't even answer because I was like, okay, this is a win.
Yeah.
And why did I consider it a win? Because I think maybe this is an important point to...
You broke the normalization for a second.
Yes, I think your very existence as someone who is a radical is something that challenges norms every moment, even if you don't say anything.
You think? Because I feel it's always, I have this thing that I feel like I should challenge people around me more. I should say more. I should bring... And sometimes I do, but many situations I don't, and then I feel like maybe my existence here is just part of the normalization.
Okay, so I think that two things can be correct at the same time, okay? I do believe that your very existence as someone who is a radical is a challenge to the norms. I'm probably paraphrasing a quote by Albert Camus, who said, be so free that your very existence is rebellion. I'm pretty sure this is the exact quote, okay?
Yeah.
And I think that this is very deep. The more free you are, the more your existence is just rebellion. Maybe it's just two sides of saying the same thing. How do you know that you are free? When your existence is rebellion. Okay?
But sometimes I think, what if I want to be free sometimes, not to rebel at every moment of my life?
I don't think that's a possibility in a world which is controlled by norms to such a heavy extent. I just think that this is a fact of life. Maybe a sad fact of life, but a fact of life. But this is okay. Maybe we will continue this discussion later, but I need to finish the thought. So, I think your very existence as someone who is free, as someone who challenges norms, at least internally, and who thought about this, and who is radical, or an anarchist, or whatever you want to call it, is a form of rebellion. And I can demonstrate this, okay? So, it is something that any vegan knows, that you can avoid talking about the subject completely. You maybe are tired of talking about it.
Yeah, and you give yourself a pass because you yourself is not consuming meat and dairy and stuff, and then you say, I did my part.
Yes.
That's a bit how, honestly, this is how I am now. Like, I'm not challenging people around it.
Mm-hmm. But what you will find out is that even if you don't want to talk about it, your very existence as someone who doesn't consume animal products will bring this discussion to you all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? Something about it. There's this joke. How do you know that someone is vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. And I think that this joke is A, not funny, and B, not true. Because it's not that the vegan will tell you. It's that you will tell the vegan.
Yeah.
This is what happens all the time. Even when I don't want to talk about it, I say, no, I don't eat this. And I don't even say why, but there is like this pressure. Why don't you cooperate? Why don't you cooperate? Why don't you cooperate? And then they pull it out of you forcefully. Okay, and I think even by your small, minute reactions to things going on around you, whether you smile or don't smile, whether your face, shows anger or sadness or neutrality or happiness or whatever, it sends messages even in a very subtle and subliminal way. And I think it does create some sort of effect. But also, you can say that it's not enough. You can say, yes, your very existence as someone who challenged the norms internally is a form of rebellion, but maybe it's not the only form of rebellion possible, and maybe it's not enough to just be an anti-Zionist in a Zionist world or be a vegan in a carnist world.
But this is different because veganism, because we always eat in society, your veganism will pop out. But if you're anti-Zionist, you can just keep it to yourself and not talk about it. And
you think so?
And you can, and people, maybe not completely, but I know people who almost not talk about it. And even I myself found myself very many times when I was tired and I didn't want to go into a fight. Just people say stuff around me and I just shut up, and I don't get with them into the discussion, and it feel like an inner loss. Because I feel part of the way I'm rationalizing to myself why I'm still here is because I can challenge people around me.
Yes.
And I do it sometimes, but I have this part in me is very free and rebellious, and part is very, very adherent to the norms, especially the norm of being nice and not confrontational.
Which is something we feel about Yuval Avraham as well. Like,
right.
Maybe we should talk about this.
That's why I feel sometimes not comfortable criticizing him, because I didn't get the same much of attention. Like, I don't know if suddenly all the Israelis get aware of our podcast and they put me on the try like they did to him. I want to believe in myself that I would tell them, like, fuck you, I stand behind every word that I said here. Like, sometimes, that sometimes I'm thinking all the times, and sometimes I question what we say, but overall I completely feel okay to say that I'm anti-Zionist, that I'm against the whole idea of the Israeli state, and I want the Palestinian refugees to return. And like, it's something that when we ask if we are normalizers, like, I feel that we basically are not normalizers, like, overall, to according of the principles of the BDS. But I don't know, let's say I would put on this stage and people ask me and they say, we heard in your podcast that you said that you understand that you didn't condemn this, and you can understand that you support resistance and blah blah, and I will feel like, I don't know what I would feel. Maybe out of fear I would just say something to please them,
Yes. So we were talking and making this very concrete. We are now in Tel Aviv, in a place called Hatikva neighborhood, and Hatikva neighborhood is a place where, so Hatikva means the hope. That's also the name of the national anthem of Israel, and it's a neighborhood with not a lot of hope, ironically.
Yeah.
Because people here are very poor and disenfranchised, and not as much as Palestinians, but also their situation is pretty bad. Okay,
yeah. And most of them are very right wing.
Yes, this goes together. That they are very vulnerable to Zionist propaganda. Okay, and I think that this is also something that we need to talk about a lot more, how people who are weak materially are also vulnerable to propaganda, and then it's much more difficult or not fair to judge them on their participation and cooperation with oppressive systems. Okay, but never mind this. The thing is, we were trying to imagine what would happen if we just went somewhere, to a store or to the coffee shop that the coffee shop that we went to a few hours ago to buy some coffee, And the guy there, he is a very nice guy, but he is also a heavy Zionist, okay? He has a sticker that says, finish them,
Yeah.
on the cash register.
We talked about him already.
We talked about him many times, and he's a very interesting example, okay?
Yeah.
Because he is definitely a good person. Like, his core is good, but it
Yeah.
has been corrupted. Why? We will talk about this in one moment, okay? What happens if we go there and we just say, not in an angry tone, not in a confrontational tone, not as an accusation or judgment or anything, we just say, yeah, we don't think that the idea of Israel is a very good idea. We think that Israel should be dismantled.
Yeah, and
We think
replaced
that-
with a democracy for all its citizens.
What will happen? What will happen? And I don't know, maybe we would be attacked. Certainly, we would be attacked in a verbal way, right?
It also may be violent and physical. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility that we would experience severe physical violence by just saying this. Okay? And the thing is that this is how norms work. There is constant enforcement of norms, of oppressive norms inside systems of oppression. And this leads me back, like we were wondering, like, can you be free and still accept the existence of norms? My position is that the existence of norms is not inherently something wrong. I think it can be argued that norms are inherently wrong. It can be argued, but I don't agree with this claim. I think that norms can exist, but the problem starts with our relationship with norms. A relationship can be a relationship of subjugation and oppression. You can be controlled by norms, and the worst situation is when the norms control you in a way that you are completely unaware of.
Yeah.
Okay?
And when they make you act in a way that is against your own set of values. Now you can argue that set of values is also norm.
Yes.
But anyway, like, it's a deep argument what the source of conscience is, and
Yes, this
and
becomes
more-
philosophical at this point.
But I do think that there is something that you can call it now. Many people will reject it, but as a soul and yesterday I was listening to, I told you about a speech of a lecture of Chris Hedge, that he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the destruction of Gaza and the genocide of Gaza in a context of a system of a world domination that is developing, and he also talked about how the West want to normalize Gaza in order that it will be able to do it in other places, because
Yes.
there's global warming and many people are going to immigrate and there's going to be many surplus population, and they want to create
This expression, it hurts me to hear this
Yeah,
expression.
but
Surplus
that's how-
it's a Nazi expression.
yeah, that's how they view it.
Yes.
He didn't use it, I used it.
Yes.
Maybe I'm the Nazi.
You were affected by norms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how they want to normalize genocide as a way of states to deal with populations that aren't welcome, aren't wanted, and that's why they're doing it also in Gaza, kind of to try it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in many war zones around the world.
Mhm.
He's a very brave journalist. He almost got shot. He saw people killed next to him. And he said, it doesn't matter what I saw, everything I saw traumatized me. But the worst traumas is not from what you see, but from what you did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he described the process that snipers go through. And it made me feel like there is, if we were
Can you elaborate on this? I think it's a good idea to say a few words about this.
Yeah, maybe I also encourage people to listen to this lecture. It's very good. But
You remember the title of the lecture?
I think I don't remember. Maybe
Okay,
I'll
maybe
find
we will
it.
put a link.
Yeah. And what?
So
maybe-
snipers.
Yeah. So he said like how these people that he knew, that his also like uncle was in World War II, and after that got addicted to alcohol and died, and how it destroys all, like how the snipers at the beginning, they are respected as and they feel they enjoy the killing because they, you know, it's an ability, and you have this thing as human that we like to be good in what we do. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you normalize killing people, so, and you get good at it, you feel good, like, and this is how they feel at the beginning, you know, because it's
Yes.
not an easy, not everyone becomes a sniper, like
Mm-hmm.
it's you need to have some skill.
It's very parallel to the pilots in
Yeah.
the Israeli military. They are highly respected. They say, "Hatovim latais, hatovot latayasim." That
Yeah.
means good guys go and become pilots, and good girls go and become
Fuck.
part. They are fucked by the pilots. Okay, this is your reward. See how
Yeah.
patriarchal this society is.
Yeah.
Tell your friend. Just ponder this expression for one moment and tell me that Israeli society is not patriarchal and sexist.
But anyway, like, it's also interesting to know that the Israeli leftists want to say that the only violent ones are the settler and the right wing, but I think it would be fair. We can test this claim, but I think more killing of Palestinians have been done from those who are connected to the liberal Zionists.
Yes.
I think they killed more people.
At the very least, they are an integral part of this machine of killing. They do their part. Okay.
Yeah. And Yuval, by the way, when he asked should people refuse to take part, he said, "I don't have an opinion." You know, it
Yes.
shows
Okay.
you.
So let's go deeply into this.
But before we go
Okay,
deeply into
okay,
that,
yeah.
like the Chris Chedge just finished the point. He
Yes,
said
yes.
that their life is slowly being destroyed. The snipers who get released from air, and they cannot find something is it's eating them from the inside, and they cannot become cannot have intimate relationships, and many of them get addicted to drugs and alcohol, and it made me think there's a limit to what we can normalize without this thing is starting to destroy us. And then it showed me that there is a force that is anti-normalization inside us. It's not that we are just product of norms. Like there is more to us. Maybe you can call it a soul, you can call it free choice, you can name it how you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that when we say soul, we don't necessarily mean something mystical and transcendental. I think that when you say soul, you can really give a material definition of what a soul is. Okay, you can say that. I'm not sure it's the best thing to do to give a material definition, but if you want to, you can. I think. I think that you can speak about different levels of consciousness, and you know, Freud talked about it with the ego, the super ego, and the id. Okay, and there are different levels of consciousness. I don't think it's just 3 levels. I think it's a spectrum. Okay, and I think it's also, you know, mixed up and complex, and everything is not as simple as what Freud said or anyone said. But some things are more connected to, you know, the outside, and some things are more connected to the inside. Some things are more me than other things, and being subjugated to what the norms say is something that corrupts and disintegrates my own soul in this way. And I think that this is a good opportunity to, first of all, say what I think, almost an hour into this episode, say what I think is the most important thing that, at least for me, should be the takeaway from this episode. And this is kind of the answer to the question that we were asking. I don't necessarily think that we should always rebel against norms, but I do certainly think that we should be much more aware of the existence of norms, we should always, at every moment in our lives, ask ourselves, why are we doing what we are doing? Why are we thinking what we are thinking? What is the role of norms in our behavior and thoughts? And how our actions are both affected by the norms and how they affect norms. And I think the more we ask ourselves these questions honestly and really look at this, then we can become more free, more connected to ourselves, to our own souls, whatever that means, and and therefore our actions will be more good, whatever that means. If there is any meaning to this word good, I think that this is the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I feel like if you want to be a person of I don't know, connected to yourself, connected to conscience, connected, it's you can never rest because you always need to, you know, it's like you said when you did this post about anti-Semitism, because you spotted right on that there's a lot of anti-Semitism online that doesn't have to do anything with Zionism and doesn't, and people who are anti-Zionist actually are anti-Semites. I guess
Sometimes.
not. It's not that what Zionists say true. I believe most of the people are not coming from the place of anti-Semitism, but sometimes you see something that it's very
Yeah,
obvious.
it's like, obviously this is just classical anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and then you made a post and you about it, and suddenly the norm of like not talking about anti-Semitism because we can only talk about what's, we don't want it to be called like Zionist by the pro-Palestine movement.
Yeah, we don't want to be called normalizers.
You
Right?
don't want it to call normalizers, and any group that you become, every movement, every group has its norms. And let's say for example the BDS sets a set of rules, it becomes some kind of norm, right? Not to cooperate with Israelis who don't denounce Zionism, who don't agree to the right of return, who don't like any, and I think that these, by and large, we can debate them, but it's a good norms. Like I think,
Yes.
I think if we want to stand for Palestinian liberation, we need to agree. Like, if you don't agree to right of return, you need to ask yourself why, and if you have the right to deny the right of return, because it means either you don't agree that there was ethnic cleansing in 48, or you don't agree that it was a crime and its victims should be compensated and, you know,
or receive justice in
or
some
receive
form.
justice. So okay, so I agree with these norms, for example.
Yes.
But I cannot just say I automatically agree with everything the BDS says. For example, you know, it's
we don't accept any authority as anarchists. One of the implications of this is that we don't accept any institution as an institution of authority. And one of the reasons that I really respect the BDS is that whenever I read their texts and engage with the things that they put out into the world, I see that they operate in a way that is not authoritative.
Yeah, and they always explain why.
Yes.
When maybe it's time to read their. Do you want to read their definition or?
I think I have one more point to emphasize before this. We were talking about Yuval Avraham and why he behaved the way he behaved, and I think that this is a wonderful example for how norms operate. And you mentioned that something. Okay, so in one of our live sessions, we read an interview that was conducted with Yuval Avraham about 2 weeks before the movie No Other Land won the Oscars. Okay? And in this interview, Yuval was asked directly, would you condemn, or I don't remember the exact phrasing, but would you say that it's wrong for Israelis to serve in the Israeli military and participate in the oppression of the Palestinians.
Yeah, they ask him, would you tell soldiers not to go to the army and participate in actions
Yes.
of oppression?
And he said, it's not my place to say each person should behave according to their own conscience.
Yeah,
And I think
it's the most liberal thing you can ever say.
yes, and it's very interesting, very interesting. Let's analyze this a little bit.
Yeah.
So first of all, look at the situation. Yuval Avraham is now, in some sense, just an integral part of the community of Masaf Aryata. Okay?
Yeah. He betrayed his friends in
Yes.
this sentence.
He betrayed his friend. He said, I will not tell other people to not go and destroy the houses of my friends and not go and oppress my friends and not go and kill my friends.
Yeah, he said like I will not. Yeah, and he called Basel his brother.
Yes, yes.
And what kind of a
Do
brother?
you think that it's okay to oppress your brother? I don't know. This is his answer. I don't know. I won't say. How come? How come? This is something that we need to stop and ask ourselves. How can this happen?
And I tell you also, it's people need to understand in the Israeli society, because I was a soldier also. Like I wasn't a combat soldier, but I did participate in this.
Yes, and myself as well. Okay, we put this on the table. Okay.
Yeah, which is makes me think a lot. How could I participate? And part of it is that they tell you you can be left wing, you can be against the occupation, but obey the law and serve in the army. That's they put it inside you that as long as you cooperate. So he actually asked Yuval, are you going that far in breaking this basic norm in Israeli society that it doesn't matter what you say, you still go to the army? And he said,
Yes.
I cannot, because if he would say, yeah, I think people shouldn't go to the army, that's it, he's out of the cult at
Yes.
that moment.
Yes. And okay, let's go one step further and look at ourselves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did they make us join the army? Okay, so first of all, we were only 18 years old, and when you are 18 years old, your own personality, your own conscience, your own awareness is not as developed. Therefore, you are more vulnerable to be exploited and controlled by these systems. And you're a teenager. You're at an age where norms are very important because you want to be you want to be accepted as a part of your society.
Yeah, and you don't know, like people who don't know Israeli society, when I was 16, 17, all the boys in the school were talking about what we're gonna do in the army, how they try to apply for this elite unit and for that elite unit, and it's the discourse around you. And it's, for men, it's like become like kind of masculinity test.
Yes, and if you're not and Israeli society is very patriarchal, and therefore, if you are not a man in Israeli society, then this is really bad, really bad. You will be lonely, you will be mocked, you will be ridiculed, you will be abused, which I was because I did not correspond to the norms of masculinity of Israeli society, because I did not want to kill Palestinians, for example, because I did not want to participate in all the abusive games that Israeli guys play with each other, where they mock each other and they always compete. I did not want to participate in it, so I was not considered a proper man, and therefore I was abused and ridiculed and ostracized from society.
Yeah. And I think this problem of patriarchy and this thing exists in many societies, I guess, not just in Israel.
Yes, but it's like ramped up.
Yeah, and here society. It really serves the army and the militarism, so it goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're 18, like in most of the places in Israel, like the army considered you just don't want to break the norm. And many people also for example, going now to Gaza, even if they don't believe in it, because they feel like not okay to betray their friends who
Yeah,
are
to
there.
screw over their friends who have
Yeah.
more work in the system of destruction,
so
in the machine of
there are
destruction.
many levels to it. It's like it's the wider society, but it's also your close peers. They
Yes.
also
And I want to tell the audience how I, someone who was already at age, I don't know, 15, 16, I declared myself as a pacifist. I thought of myself as a pacifist, maybe even before that. I don't remember exactly. A leftist, a pacifist, okay? And still, I went to serve in the Israeli army. And this is something I can talk for hours about how the system worked on me, but if I want to say, the main part in a succinct way, I will tell you that, first of all, my parents, my family in general, and my parents specifically, told me, if you do not go to the army, you will have problems afterwards. It will be harder for you to find a job. It will be harder for you to be a part of Israeli society. And you know what? They were absolutely correct. This is just a correct statement that if you do not go and participate in this machine of, now we know, genocide, called the Israeli army, you will have a lot of problems in Israeli society. You will immediately be treated with suspicion, with like estrangement, and it will be much harder for you to participate in Israeli society. Now, the question is, do you want to participate in Israeli society? Good question, but in some senses, you do not have a choice. If you do not participate in your society, it's how will you get food? How will you get housing? How will you get, clothes? How will you get the basic necessities of life? How will you get friends?
And think about it, how like this, what we're doing now is helping us. But imagine if we wouldn't have the ability to talk to people outside from this society about this. How would we feel like lonely and locked? And
I don't have to imagine. This was my situation for years and years and years.
This
Nobody outside even considered the issue of the oppression of the Palestinians and Zionism was not a hot topic issue until 7th of October. Okay? Very few people talked about it around the world, and I, as someone who was deep inside the Zionist cult, and I knew that I didn't agree, and I did not want to participate, and I did not want to cooperate, and I felt completely lonely in this society. So fucking lonely. And this is very powerful. You can say there are worse things than being lonely, and this might be correct. It might also not be so correct. Maybe in some sense, being lonely is the worst thing that you can cause someone. But I know that it was very, very difficult. And let's go back to Yuval Avraham. And he says in this interview, and I don't know him personally, but let's do like a case study, okay? He seems like a very gentle person, a very kind person, as a person who loves to love other people and who loves it when other people loves him. Okay? And I think for him, it's part of his like his self-perception, his self-value is very much based on this, on the fact that he is loved and that he loves. And for him, it is very, very difficult to feel that he is being rejected from his own society. And he said this explicitly in this interview, and he mentioned when they asked what were their reactions to this movie, he said one of the most difficult things that I experienced was that an old friend of mine that I have known ever since I was a child sent me a message and told me, I regret having known you.
Yeah.
This is very difficult. This is very difficult to hear. Imagine that you hear this from someone that you consider a personal close friend. This destroys your soul. So this is why it was so difficult for him. And then, half an hour later, they asked him, do you say Would you say to soldiers, to Israelis to not join the army? And he's like, maybe I shouldn't say it because maybe then more of my friends would say, I regret having known you.
But he will also kind of, like, you know, the fact that he's even been interviewed such a paper, like there are some stuff that if you say, like, if you use the word genocide, that's why many in Israel, like in all the world, it's already kind of consensus in the people who criticize the Gaza war to call it a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
But in Israel, it's not the case. Even the left wing, I don't think even Gideon Levy said the word genocide.
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, he said atrocities, he said war crimes, he said
Yes.
it has to stop, but he wouldn't say genocide because this is a code word that you stepped into the hostile world.
Yes.
And
Yes, you stepped out of the cult. You stepped
Yeah.
out of the realm of things that are permissible to say.
Yeah, so, and I think, like, the more I look at what's happening, I think that it's not just genocide what happened this last few months, also what happened before.
Yes,
It's
a
a
long
whole
process.
It's a long process of genocide, right? Just as the genocide of the Jews started when they concentrated them in ghettos, right? It's before the extermination process happened. There's ghettoization, there's
Yes.
separation from society, there's making people stateless refugees in order so then when the moment come you can also kill
Yes,
them
to
and
remove the protections that they have slowly.
yeah, exactly. So you can argue that the genocide of the Palestinians started already way before October 7th, and it's crucial to use this word, but these words you cannot say. Just like as you cannot, there a limit of criticism that you can give, but you're still, even if you're and you are still kind of part of the cult. They will still call you names and will, but Yuval is like on the verge,
Yes, he's
right?
like on the very limit of permissibility, and I think that very soon he will find himself on the other side of this. And I say to Yuval, please come.
Yeah.
Please come to the other side. It's better here. It's better. Yes, it's harder, but it's better. And I think that maybe we should use this to generalize and say this is the way that norms are enforced. This is one of the reasons that norms are so powerful, because there are mechanisms put in place by the systems of oppression, subjugation, control to enforce these norms. So maybe let's go over this process, okay? So you start off, you are born, and from the moment that you are born, the norms are shoved into your brain by your family, by everyone around you, by the media, by the behavior of people around you, by the education system, the system of enforcement of norms, and it is shoved so deep into your consciousness that you don't even consider that there are norms that you are operating by. It's completely, it becomes, it's like asking, one fish asks the other fish, how is the water today? And the fish asks, what is water?
Yeah.
Because it's so entrenched into your consciousness that you don't even know that it's there, and this is the most dangerous, okay? And then maybe something happens, like maybe Yuval, a person like Yuval, studies Arabic and goes to visit Masa Faryata. I don't know why, even. Why did he go there to begin with? But he becomes curious, he hears something, he becomes curious, and he starts finding out some stuff that kind of go against everything that he heard, all the norms that were shoved into his brain from the moment that he was born. So you start questioning, and then the system starts using mechanisms to stop you from questioning. So first of all, there's like explanations and rationalizations and excuses and all the arguments that are being used to stop thinking, the thought terminating cliches that are being used to stop you questioning. If you happen to continue questioning, and maybe you start talking about it, so then people start telling you, oh, you're crazy, and they start calling you names, and they start insulting you, and this always escalates and escalates and escalates, and there are many points in which you can just stop and you say, okay, I will stop questioning.
Yeah.
I will stop questioning. I will just go back to the comfort of the cult and behave normally. Okay? But some people continue, like us. Some people continue. And it is just a fact that the more you continue challenging the norms, the more violent the reaction to the challenging of the norms becomes. And if you challenge it enough, then you will get I don't know, threats, like people wrote comments on our videos that they know where you live and that they will beat you up,
Yeah.
right? And maybe you will be arrested, which is a very violent thing to do to someone. Maybe you will be interrogated. Maybe you will be marked as a problematic person. Maybe you will lose your job. Maybe you will lose your friend. Maybe you will lose your family. Maybe and so forth. And then maybe you will experience actual physical violence, which
Yes.
I also experienced in demonstrations. When I went to demonstrations, I experienced physical violence from police officers. So this is a process of escalation. The system always escalates their reaction to going against the norms, and the more you continue, the more violent the reaction becomes. And this is how norms are being enforced all the time.
But also in the context of, I think, the Israeli society and liberal Zionism at large, you always want to also allowed something, but you define the realms of what is allowed, because you need to show that we're a free society,
Mhm.
that like there is discourse here. You know, even if in the most Nazi Israeli propagandist channels,
Yes.
you see few people on the panel and they're arguing and they
Yes.
want to show there's different of opinions, you know, we are not, and they all just enforcing the same paradigm, you know, that it's okay to kill Palestinians, that we didn't do anything wrong, and then, you know, they will maybe talk about something very small that Israeli soldier cat doing, and this is the only thing. And look how, like, there's always, and I think what happened with No Other Land movie, that they felt that they cannot push down completely, and in that sense, like, this movie is success, because, like, the fact that the people who are shaping the discourse of the world felt like we have to give them something.
Yes.
We have to give them something because there is demonstration all over the world, and we are being criticized from about being Hollywood being belong to the Zionists. So we want to show them, look, it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we allow? We allow movie that shows some part of the picture that is also made with the help of Israeli who is not denouncing the Zionism completely,
Mm-hmm.
and then so it's it's both normalization and it's both a win.
Yes.
The way I see it, it's
Yes.
not either or, because it is a win that this movie got to many people. It is a win that the Palestinian struggle got to the awareness of so many people that even Hollywood felt they need to change something, because it's the first time they recognize this kind of thing. But it is also normalization um, because of what we mentioned, because it was made with a person who doesn't renounce and is still part of the Zionist cult, and he showed that in many situations.
Yes, where he had a choice between, going all the way
Yeah,
or, retreating. And he chose many times to retreat. He chose many times to say direct things, but he chose many times to retreat. And this is, I think this is a point where I need to say something which is a response to many criticisms that I got, I think we got, or that is, it's not just us, okay? There is like this claim about people calling this normalization or talking about how this is normalization being, party poopers
yeah,
and
People who don't do anything on the ground and criticize people who do and
Yes.
put their life on the.
Yes, and that we're just, trying to be, and that we're purists, and that we're trying to feel morally superior, which, by the way, these words, purists and morally superior, are expressions that are used by Zionists all the time, and fascists of all kinds, by carnists, by chauvinists, all the time, by capitalists, all the time. They are being used by the system to silence principled resistance. So, if you find yourself using this word, I never ever use this word purist to try to say that someone else's criticism of the system of oppression is illegitimate or not in its place or problematic. I never ever did it. And I'm not trying to behave morally superior. I also didn't say this ever. It's just there is something about this kind of thinking that is a collaboration with the system, and I will explain now, okay? So if you find yourself using these kinds of expressions or expressing these kinds of beliefs or coming with this kind of energy, please look at yourself honestly and directly and ask yourself, why are you doing this? Okay? And there may be psychological, personal reasons for why you are doing this, but it doesn't mean that your psychology and emotions are not being taken advantage of by the system to serve its own needs against the revolution, against the struggle for freedom. Okay? And I will explain now. I need to explain this very explicitly. Okay? Why is no other land a win? Because, like you said, we, the movement to free Palestine, managed to push the boundaries of what is acceptable to say. We managed to put the struggle of the Palestinians, specifically the part of it where in the West Bank, where Palestinians in the West Bank oppose the occupation of the West Bank, you know, in the one of the most central stages of the empire. Wonderful, wonderful that we got to do it. But, like you said, what happened there? The system felt a danger, and then they wanted to give you something, okay, so that you are, so that you are. What is the word? Placated. Placated. They wanted to placate you, so they gave you something. Okay? They gave us something. Look! It's a win for you. Look! Now be happy with the win and shut up. Yeah. This is what the system wants. And I am saying we should do the exact opposite. We see, so the discussion rose up and got to this central stage. This is an opportunity. This is it's now there is, it's like a chess game, okay? Yeah. You did all the correct moves and you are now at a place where you can take the opponent's queen, okay? It's not a checkmate, it's not queen, okay? Bishop, okay? Because it's far from a checkmate, but you did all the right moves. Now you can take the opponent's bishop. And the opponent gives you a pawn.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, wonderful, I can take the pawn. So you take the pawn.
Yeah.
And then your opponent is happy because you forgot about the bishop.
Yeah.
Okay? I am saying, if you forget about the bishop, then your win becomes a loss. And this is the exact moment that we should be very, very, very aware of what is going on. What is going on is that there is a moment where we can reap the fruit of our labor. Okay? And if we do not talk about the mixed character of this win, if we do not talk about how this win is also in some senses not a complete win, then we are playing into the hands of the system and we are not doing what we need to do. This is exactly the time that we need to speak up even more loudly. We cannot just sit back and celebrate now. This is the time where we need to push even harder. And if we don't, then we are betraying the very goal of the struggle that we are supposedly part of. And then we are cooperating and collaborating with the system.
Yeah, it's like Muhammad al-Kurd said in his book, like we always need to raise the bar of what is permissible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think it's kind of we have with the systems that control us, like master and slave relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the master see that the slave is unsatisfied,
Mm-hmm.
so he gives him a little bit more freedom.
Because the master is always afraid of the slave.
Right.
Because he knows that in some way the slave is more powerful, right?
Yeah, and I think the master is always afraid what will happen to him when the slaves get free. That's why, when Zionist says, like, when the Palestinian will get democracy, they will kill us. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, we are not in control anymore, and we don't have the advantage anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's this vicious cycle that maintains slavery, that maintains apartheid, that... in many places in the US, like the whites were a minority who
Mm-hmm.
controlled majority of slaves, and they were terrified by the options of slaves becoming free and killing them all. Like, we don't, when history advances, you look back and you say, what the fuck? Why did they enslave them? It's so simple, everything looks. But
Yes.
but when you are in the position of the masters in an oppressive system, you are terrified all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Zionists always terrified. But what I wanted to say, that it's a bit like this slave and master and slave relationship, when the master is like, okay, he's doing something to give a little bit more freedom to the slave,
Mm-hmm.
so he will be relaxed and won't rebel. And if the slave is happy about, and the slave have this thing that he's want to rebel, but he also want to please the master in the slave psychology, because he internalized the oppression.
Exactly, the norms
yeah.
of oppression are
And
being
so
internalized even by those oppressed by the
So
system.
Hollywood gave us something. So what? We want to be free. We don't want to get some pat on the head from Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to. So it's a win if we take it and say now we want more, because we don't stop until complete freedom, because freedom is absolute. It's not something you can't give somebody a little bit freedom.
Yes,
it's
yes,
absolute.
you're still subjugated.
Yeah.
You were just given something by the ones controlling you.
Yeah, like, okay, so somebody draw the line a bit wider, but he's still telling
Yes.
you he is the one that set the rules where you can go, and the moment you misbehave, he will draw the line closer. That's what
Yes.
Israel keep doing with the Palestinians all the time, right? Like, what, like Zionists say, what do you want? We let them have work. We let 1,000 Gaza work inside Israel. We gave them a little bit.
What do you mean you let them?
Yeah.
What do you mean I let them? What gives you the right to let other people do or not do something? The very fact that you can say we let them is the problem. It's not you think that when you say we gave them this and this and this, then this is an argument for you. But no, it's an argument against you, because the very fact that you can say we gave them, we let them, is
Shows
undeniable. You said it.
Yeah.
So it's undeniable evidence that you run the show here.
Yeah. But we have, in their mind, they will say, but we have to control them. Look how they behave. What will happen if we give them
Which is
freedom?
master mentality.
Yeah.
I rest my case, okay?
Yeah.
And I want to take what you said even one step further, okay? And I want to talk about how systems of oppression, and specifically how Zionism, they create hierarchies, okay? And then one of the tools that the systems of oppression uses to maintain the hierarchies is to convince those that are low on the hierarchy to cooperate with the system itself. Okay? So let's look at the people of Masafar Yatta. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I must put a huge asterisk here. I'm not saying that the people of Masafar Yatta are wrong for this, okay? I'm going to say what happened. This is not something that I'm saying against the people of Masafar Yatta. I'm just trying to put a spotlight on this dynamic, on this cynical and horrible dynamic, okay? And the dynamic is that the people of Masafar Yatta have so fucking little. And when they say to people who call it normalization, come and spend one day here and see how difficult it is for us and then speak, I will say, yes, 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 this is correct. It is very difficult for you, and 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 this must be acknowledged. And the way that I think that this must be acknowledged is to remember that you are not the problem and that anything that you did can be understood completely, okay, and justified. Like I have no criticism of you, but still the very fact that the people of Masafar Yatta have it so hard is exactly what I'm talking about. The system oppresses people, and then they give them an interest, a material interest, to cooperate with the system.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, like, this movie would, let's say, exactly same content, exactly same material, but there was no Israelis participating in the film, it would get, no one would pay attention
Yes,
to this.
exactly. So the system created a situation in which the only way that the people of Masafar Yatta can oppose their oppression is by also, in some way, but an important way, normalizing their oppression, and therefore participating in this oppression. This is why the situation is so cynical. We must see how the system creates these situations of lose, 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 lose. Anything you do is a loss. So it doesn't mean that the fact that the people of Masafar Yatta did what they did, it's completely understandable, and I would do the same thing in their place. Okay, just very explicitly, I'm saying I would do the same thing in their place, but to really oppose the system, we must see that this is a cynical dynamic. We blame the system. But we blame the system for what? For creating a situation in which the most oppressed people under this system, to fight this system, must cooperate with it as well. And you need to see the cynicism of this situation. You need to see how tragic this situation is, but we also need to acknowledge this situation for what it is, so that we don't find ourselves cooperating with the system. So I have no criticism for the people of Masafar Yatta. Your situation is so difficult that you need to shut up about the wider ways in which the system oppresses all Palestinians and you specifically.
Yeah.
But I am in a privileged position where I don't need to shut up about it, and therefore I will not shut up about it. I will say exactly how the system used you to normalize the system.
Yeah, and also, there are many things to say. Like, for example, is it appropriate in the moment to. Is it even appropriate to show only Basel's story and not show it in the context of the genocide in Gaza? Or, like, come on, there's a genocide happening, and these things are connected.
Yes.
This is also part of the same thing, a different aspect, and, like, there's a reason where none of these contexts were given in the movie. Again, I think it's a good movie and it's important, and there's also one part in the movie that Yuval is like, that they're in the car and Basel telling him, like, you're too excited. You think you're gonna end the occupation in like
Yes.
10 days?
Yes.
And he said, get used to it, you're a loser now.
Yes, I love that part. I was like, yes, I'm a proud loser.
Yeah.
I was like proud to be a loser, you know?
And maybe the thing is that to be really the challenge from someone who from the privilege is to agree to be a loser, to be completely loser, is not to say the stuff that will make you welcomed in your own society, is to accept to be alienated. You need to accept to be a loser and stop wanting to be in the winning part, and Yuval agreed to be a loser, but also didn't agree to be a loser because he had too much to lose, I guess.
Yes, at some point, the system was like, look, Yuval, you can become a famous documentary director. Come. You will get the Oscars. Here's a statue. It's gold. See how shiny it is. See how pretty it is. See, thousands of the most famous and rich people in the world are in the audience, and we're putting you on the stage, and you can speak to the most famous, rich, and powerful people in the world, and hundreds of millions of people will hear what you have to say. Come. And all you have to do is sign this contract. And you know what's in the fine print of this contract? That you have to betray your friend Basel.
Yeah, you think that's how that's how you view it?
I think that when people talk about deals with the devil, this is why the devil always gives you a contract.
Yeah.
Because the devil works with the norms, you know? The devil works with the system, the devil is the system. This is I just, you know, maybe this is a good movie to do. how the system is the devil, you know? And it's really hard to say no to this. And I don't know what will happen with Yuval in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I really hope that Yuval will see this. I really hope that Yuval will watch this episode. If you are watching this episode, hi Yuval.
Probably he wouldn't.
מה קורה? יובל, אני אישית, אלון, חושב שאתה אישית, יובל, בגדת קצת בחבר שלך באסל. זה מה שאני חושב. אני באמת חושב את זה. אני לא הולך לשקר לך כי אני מכבד אותך יותר מדי. יובל, אני מכבד אותך יותר מדי. ובגלל זה אני לא אשקר לך ואגיד לך שאני לא חושב שבגדת. קצת. אולי הרבה. בחבר שלך באסל. ואתה היית צריך לקרוא לזה רצח עם. ואתה היית צריך להגיד שאתה אנטי-ציוני. ואתה היית צריך להגיד שצריך לפרק את מדינת ישראל. ושילכו להזדהן המשפחה שלך, ושילכו להזדהן כל החברה, ושילך להזדהן החבר שלך, שאמר לך שהוא מתבייש שהוא הכיר אותך. שילכו להזדהן. כי אתה לא היית אמור לבגוד בחבר שלך באסל. I really hope that Yuval watches this. I really hope that he will not sign this deal, this contract with the devil. I really hope that he will join us, the resistance, truly.
It's also the understanding that words have meaning. You know, people all the time say, like, about us, you're just criticizing, you're not doing, he was there on the ground, but fair, it's good to go on the ground, but words have meaning. What you say, like, you have to make the world know what is your stance and be very clear. And I think it's not a small thing to do, like to renounce Zionism completely, outspokenly, like without making compromises, to say, how many Israelis would say, like, we call for the right of return to be implemented here, we think it's possible and we want it to happen, and to have a mixed society where we live together, and that is the only right and just solution to the problem that Zionism created, not anything else. Like, if you don't want this, so get the fuck out.
Yeah, right? You're not part of the movement.
I think really. there's two things I could say to Israelis. It's like, either you accept the right of return and say thank you to the Palestinians who tell you welcome you on this land, but not in expense of us. And if you want, share us democracy. And if you don't accept that, go away. This is the two solutions, not this and two states. Two states is, it's not even close to be a just solution to what happened here.
Yes. Yes.
And your fears are irrelevant. And and most of, so it's important to say that it's like,
okay, so let's do an exercise, okay? And I want to say before we do this exercise, we're not this episode is not about Yuval Avraham, okay? This episode is about normalization. We're using what happened with No Other Land and Yuval Avraham as a case study for what normalization is, and how to deal with it, and all the questions that arise when you speak about this subject of normalization, this very important subject of normalization. But let's do an exercise. What if Yuval Avraham, one day before the Oscar ceremonies, before he went to bed, he was like, fuck, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then, I don't know, for some reason, he went on YouTube, and he found us, and he sent us a message, and he talked to us, and we told him what we're saying now. Okay, we had this conversation all night long, and we convinced him to go all the way. Okay, what would happen if he went on stage at the Oscar ceremony and said, "This is a genocide. The genocide is a direct result of the project of Zionism. The state of Israel has no right to exist, let alone to defend itself. And the oppression of my friend Basel is just an inherent part of the Zionist project. Zionism is a colonialist movement. The apartheid is a result of this colonialist movement. It always was this. It always will be this. It is supported by the empire represented by the very ceremony that I am attending now. I am speaking on a stage that was given to me because the empire decided that I get this stage, and I completely denounce everything that is going on here. You know, like that movie with Al Pacino. I don't remember the name of the movie, but he says, I'm out of order, you're out of order, this whole courtroom's out of order, this whole empire is out of order.
Yeah, I don't remember.
This whole system is out of order. What would happen if he said this?
He wouldn't be able to go back and live here for sure.
But what a powerful moment that would have been.
It could be a moment that changed history.
Yes. What a powerful moment that could have been. And I think that Yuval, you did so much, you invested so many years into arriving at that point where you are on that stage, and you had a golden opportunity. And I think, in many, many ways, you took this golden opportunity, the golden statue, the golden opportunity, you took this opportunity and you squandered it.
I wonder what I would do, because if I would be in a position that all of my society see it, I think I would say it and then already have a ticket to stay somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's and I understand him, I don't know, it's super
because
scary.
Already, just because of what he said, he's already facing so much backlash.
Yeah.
Again. One of our points is that it is completely and utterly difficult to oppose norms. It is very, very, very difficult. Norms are constructed in such a way, otherwise they would not be norms. They are constructed in such a way that it is inherently difficult and dangerous to go against them. So, we completely understand why Yuval did what he did. But that doesn't mean that there was no other option, and it doesn't mean that he couldn't have done something else, and it doesn't mean that it would not have been better to do something else.
I don't think, by the way, that he thinks the same. It's not that he just didn't dare to say. I don't think he arrived at this conclusion.
And this is again how norms work. they don't just affect your actions, but they also affect your mind. It is a long process of liberating your mind and then uh, uh, choosing actions that correspond to the liberated state of consciousness that you are in.
Yeah, because I think again, to question the whole Zionist narrative is much more challenging to your a question about yourself, because suddenly it's not just I go from like he's in Ber Saba, he is a settler, just like the settler, his grandparents did to the Palestinians in Ber Saba worst things that are being done to Basel.
I don't know.
I don't know worse.
Like maybe they were brought in by the Zionists. Maybe they didn't need to actively participate in it. I don't know exactly. It doesn't matter though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they were his grandparents, but we live us. I live here. Like for me, in a way, it's easier for a leftist to go and do all the way to the West Bank and fight settlers. Again, I don't want to undermine this activity.
Yeah.
Than saying I live in Tel Aviv and it's also a settlement, and in a way Tel Aviv should be dismantled, like not dismantled, but in a way it's being dismantled. It should be dismantled as a pure Jewish state that is kind of the light of the Western civilization. All this fake city needs to be completely changed. And if I will, and I want the people from Gaza to return here, it's way more like saying this is more threatening. It's scary, but it's like so. Yeah, denouncing Zionism completely is.
So let me ask you. I think this is the last subject that we will raise in this episode because we've been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Before I ask you this, I think the most important thing that us and our viewers should take from this discussion is to always ask ourselves, how are we affected by norms and how do we participate? How our actions are participating in the norms, reinforcing the norms, and maintaining the norms, and what our actions say about our level and character of participation with the systems of oppression, which is always there. Okay? So here's the question: are we normalizers? Okay? When we have a conversation with Muhammad, okay, who lives in Deir al-Balah, refugee camp in Gaza, and we talk about the initiative of one democratic state for all inhabitants between the river and the sea, where everyone is equal, where everyone has the same rights, where identity is not politicized, and where justice has been served, whatever that means. Are we also, in some sense, as people who were born into Jewish Israeli society, whatever that fucking means, even though we reject this, even though we proclaim and we say the words, okay? Are we normalizing? Are we normalizers?
I ask myself all the time, but sometimes I feel that my only thing I can do at the moment to stop normalizing is pack my things and leave. And I'm not saying that every person, but I have the ability, and maybe if I want to not to normalize this society and what it does to the Palestinians, maybe I cannot participate in it in any form. And it's either I move to Palestine and live with the Palestinians in Ramallah, or and completely denounce any contact. And there are some rare Israelis who did that in the course of the history. I think Andre, this journalist, lives somewhere in the West Bank now. And this is something that maybe it's more possible than we think.
Yes, we have been conditioned by indoctrination, by the system that reinforces the one of the norms is it's dangerous to go to Ramallah.
Yeah, and many Israelis broke this norm. I'm not saying there is no danger at all to identify as an Israeli, but I think like Ronnie told me that he was like there a few years ago and he spoke in English and then they just spoke with him in Hebrew because they recognized him and it's
Yes.
like, yeah, we
So,
see, it's
so
fine.
I must say that when I think about going to live in the West Bank with other Palestinians, with Palestinians as opposed to me, I don't know what that means.
Mhm.
I am not afraid of their reaction. I think it will be very easy for me, for us,
Mhm.
to say, yeah, we're on your side. We're
Yeah.
fucking. I think we will be accepted. What I am afraid of is the Israeli army and the occupation. This is what I'm afraid of. The violence of the occupation. If I try to be as honest as I can.
But isn't that hypocritical to say, yeah, I'm with the oppressed, but I don't want it to take share in their suffering and suffer the consequences? Maybe the moral thing to do is to go and stand with her in solidarity and say, I want to experience, to know how it really feels, because we're
Yes.
talking about it from what we heard them saying
Yes. Yes.
and what we read in books and stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I feel that I'm already, in many ways, I because I have big, I listen to many Palestinians and I think I understand the situation pretty well, but still it's not like
Yes.
as
There's the experience
yeah.
that we don't have. Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel part I didn't go over all of the normalization, that I still have this fear of going to Ramallah.
Yes.
I don't learn Arabic as well as I do, and I think maybe, and then when I just live in this society and all I do is our videos, I feel like I have this sense that it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, like I think it's very good material, but I feel like I have to do more,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what is more. And sometimes I think maybe I just, okay, I don't want to normalize this society
Mm-hmm.
that forces me to normalize crimes in the worst crimes that, the top kind of crimes that people can do. I don't,
That people can do to other people.
yeah.
To other people. Because, okay, so this is something that I need to say now. Because, okay, so I will start by saying I have more and more these thoughts that maybe the correct thing to do is to go and live in Ramallah or other places in the West Bank that are under occupation.
Mm.
Just so it's clear, it is physically impossible for us to go to Gaza. Just we will not be able to do it.
Yeah.
There is a border there. It is heavily guarded. It is impossible for us as Jewish Israelis
Mm-hmm.
to go to Gaza. Okay, and also highly dangerous. Okay. About the West Bank, this is different. Okay, I think that it is not physically impossible for us to go to the West Bank, and it's definitely not. And I don't know definitely, but it's probably not physically impossible for us to go and live in the West Bank. Okay, and honestly, I'm having more and more these thoughts that this is what I should do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but there is also life. Okay, and I have a home that I live in Haifa. Okay, I have a girlfriend. We take care of 4 cats. We have an apartment that we invested in, organizing in the way that we like, and I don't know how to like technically do this thing that is living in. Okay, but maybe you can say just go visit, and maybe that's a good idea.
Go visit.
Go visit. What do you mean more? I went to visit the West Bank 0 times in my life. Okay, 0, 0, 0.
So
The
aren't
reason-
we fake that we just sit here and talk and not even go
Yes.
to the West Bank?
Yes. Yes. But it is just a fact that life in this, in human society in general, is riddled with situations where you participate with norms, with oppressive norms. Every single moment of my existence in human society, in the way that it exists in the, a quarter of a way into the 21st century, it's just that I keep participating in systems of oppression and therefore normalizing systems of oppression. And I think that the worst thing that we normalize as people living in human society is the non-human animal holocaust. Okay, it is just numerically the worst thing that people are doing and also the most heavily normalized. Okay, there is nothing as normalized as the horrible treatment of non-human animals, and wherever I go, I will normalize this. Also, wherever I go, I will normalize capitalism. I will participate in capitalism and therefore normalize it. Wherever I go, I will participate in Western imperialism, in patriarchy, in all kinds of systems of oppression. And this will be true for every moment of my existence, wherever I am. Okay? To some extent. To some extent. And this is also true for you. For you watching us. No matter who you are participating actively in systems of oppression and therefore normalizing them. Please look and make a list, and this list will at least have 20 or 30 or 100 or 1,000 articles in it, okay, of things that you normalize today.
But then if you take this notion, so it's like, okay, what, fuck it, it gives you this feeling that it doesn't matter what I do because I'm always part in horrible things, and let's just fuck it and forget it because this is life. You can come to this nihilistic,
If what I said now leads me to this kind of conclusion, then I think that this is an argument for the system. This is participating with the system actively, okay? Yeah. This is what I said is just a fact, okay? And now you can take this fact and see what you want to do with it.
Because many people say, you oppose eating meat, but you, with your money, you donate to so many other Holocaust and slaveries and different kind. And you picked up this one to feel that you're a good person. So, this criticism, I guess as vegan, you hear it all the time.
I heard it thousands of times in my life.
Yeah.
And I do not, I'm not saying that this criticism is untrue on a factual level. The only thing that's untrue on a factual level is that I did it to feel good about myself. I didn't do it to feel good about myself or to feel better than other people. I did it. I stopped contributing to the Holocaust industries because I felt that it is the right thing to do. Okay?
Yeah, and this is a place, an area where you can effectively just stop participating.
Yes, there is a very simple thing that I can do to stop participating in this system of oppression. Okay? So the question is, where do you take it? And all the times that I heard this kind of argumentation in my life, the end goal was to say, so don't do anything. This came from people who didn't do anything for anyone ever, okay, and that wanted to cause me to continue participating more and more and more in the oppressive system
and to stop challenge them because it's annoying.
Yes, yes, they wanted to shut me up.
Yeah.
And then it's a tool in the hands of the oppressive systems to silence and quash resistance. But if I take this fact and I say, okay, so what I want to do with it is, for example, be more and more and more aware of the ways that I am participating in the system and normalizing the system, so that I can find more ways to stop doing it, okay? Then I think it's a revolutionary thing to think and to go by, okay? So it's subtle, okay? It's like the same kind of acknowledgement you can take in a direction that is completely cooperating with the system, or in a direction that is completely resisting the system. And I try to take it in the direction of resisting the system.
Yeah, I think we have to wrap up soon. I'm getting a bit.
Yes.
My mind is a bit.
So maybe you can just say final thoughts, and then we will wrap things up.
I think first thing we want to understand people to understand is that we always normalizing, and it's not such an easy task to say, and the best thing to do is first examine honestly yourself what crimes are you participating in normalizing, and ask yourself in what levels you can resist it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not a clear answer. Like, I think, for me, example, this podcast is part of anti-normalization activity that I'm doing by
Mm-hmm.
speaking publicly with my identity exposed and saying again and again and again, I'm not part of it. Now, you can say it's not enough or whatever, but it's something.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that very few people are doing. It is, I think, a true fact that there are no, zero, Jewish Israelis, whatever that means, other than us, who live in occupied Palestine and who speak so directly against Zionism with their identities exposed. It's just, I think it's just a fact. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, like there are some people I know in my Facebook who are writing stuff, but I
Yes,
think
but like videos and conversations, you know, I
videos,
don't know
yeah,
anyone else who is doing it. So it's something. It's something.
yeah, and not a lot people like denounce Zionism in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have feeling that sometimes my part that is normalizing what's going on here is bigger than than like sometimes I think maybe I'm doing this to feel good about myself, but actually not so many people watch it. And then I go on with my life and I go to teach kids who will go to the army,
Mm-hmm.
and I sit with friends in a bar and I read with my phone about Israel shutting down the electricity in Gaza, and I don't and I choose not to speak up because I know they will give me hard time.
Yes.
And when I have a lot of these experiences adding up, so sometimes I feel like just fuck it, I don't want to be here anymore,
Yes.
or that I should do something that is more drastic. But it's not so clear that if I will leave, that it will change anything for the better. Maybe this is just a
Yeah, you will
narcissistic.
do this to feel good about yourself. It's always
Yeah, yeah,
like you
yeah.
can say all kinds of things about all kinds of actions.
Yeah, and you know, from cooperating with Muhammad from Gaza, for example, I feel that he wants me to be here and talk and challenge the people that are around me and convince them that one democratic state is better. And sometimes I get really fueled with energy when I talk to him, because he like doesn't have this giving up attitude that we a little bit have. You know, he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, talk to them. What do you mean? We want to have them on board. You know,
But
and
maybe that's also a result of Muhammad not having the experience of talking to them for again and again and again.
yeah,
And,
but he
just
had
getting
but
zero
he
results.
had the experience of them killing him and
Yes.
bombing him, and he
Yes.
still want to talk to them. So I say, who am I
Mm-hmm.
not to take up this challenge? You
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, but he didn't experience this society like in the way that
Intimately, like we did.
yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you know, I guess there are many Palestinians around him who thinks he's crazy. Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
really think we want to live with these people who did this to us for so long?
Mm-hmm.
I would have nothing to say to a Palestinian from Gaza who would say I don't want anything to do with you people.
Yes.
Like I would say, yeah, I understand you. I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
what would I say?
Yeah.
Don't think I'm not part of this. I'm good. It doesn't matter, you know. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, so I don't know what the conclusion to how to resist normalization, but I think the first step is to ask yourself when and how you are doing it, and try maybe how to resist it in your daily life. and
Mm-hmm.
and maybe, you know, every time you resist normalization by small actions, it's also a small win, you know, by challenging your family at dinner and not letting it pass that they serve the you know, bodies of corpses of animals, or by pointing them that still there's a genocide going on and you're participating, and many other things. I think we're normalizing state rules and states, and to me, it's something that we're not aware enough. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that some organization can tell you, now I force you to go to the army, for example,
Yeah.
and
So
if
to pay taxes or
to
to
pay
behave in
taxes.
certain ways, you know, follow the rules. Follow the rules.
Yeah, half of your income is mine because I said so.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
every time we go to buy a product in the supermarket, we normalize the existence of money and of capitalism, and the fact that when people have more money, they can get more resources, and where people have less money, they have less resources, and this the result of this is some people are homeless, and some people cannot get medical treatment, and some people don't have enough food, or so forth and so on. This is also a thing that we normalize all the time by participating in this system.
yeah, we normalize all the time, and
Mhm.
we cannot not normalize completely, but we can always raise the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it that like when we talked about that I move when I talk and it looks weird and it feels
Mm-hmm.
weird, but people when I do it more and more they kind of forced to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of norms that people don't have guts also to. Sometimes people will just like well-behaved people. A lot of time they don't know what to do when you do something weird. Like they're
Yes.
embarrassed.
Yes.
When you say something about veganism, some people will challenge you, but some will be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable," and you can push. You can use this thing,
Yes.
to push it farther. To say, "Okay, I'm embarrassing them. Fuck it."
Yes.
Until you make them try to silence you up.
Yes. Yes.
Like.
So I will again repeat this quote by Albert Camus, which I think
Mhm.
is it sums it up. It sums it up very well. Be so free that your very existence is a rebellion. Okay, and I
This.
think that this encapsulates much of what we were talking about, and I think that the road to freedom goes through seeing the uh, the limits of our freedom, and I think that one of the most powerful limits to our freedom is norms. One of the most powerful tools of control is norms. And therefore, if we see the norms around us more clearly, and if we question and challenge the norms around us more clearly, more directly, more actively, then this, by definition, means that we are more free. And I think that this is one of the most important processes that I want to, pursue, and I suggest all our viewers to do the same, because I think that the more you do it, the more free you will become, and then the more free you will allow others around you to become.
And it's also show you that fighting for others' freedom cannot go without freeing yourself.
Yes, it goes hand in hand.
Because we're also oppressed in many, many ways. So.
Okay, this is the time to wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
We went on for a long time, but I think that this is a good thing, because it's a very, very important subject, and it deserves much consideration, and a nuanced discussion and a deep discussion, like we said in the beginning. And maybe we will also go more deeply into it later. I think every subject that we discuss, we say, oh, maybe at some point in the future we will need to revisit it and say more.
Yeah, we didn't even read the BDS, but
Yes, but I think we covered it quite thoroughly.
yeah.
Go and read the definition of the BDS for normalization and think.
If we're normalizers or not.
No, and think. This is not what I meant. You can, but think about where this definition came from, what kind of message it is trying to give you, and how it is relevant to your own life and actions. I think that is a very good exercise to do in your own lives. Okay, thank you very much to everyone who listened to us for over 2 hours.
I wonder if people get there even.
Sometimes I see comments that really that relate directly to things that we said an hour in, an hour and a half in, 2 hours in.
Yeah.
So okay, if you watched this far, what should they comment? Okay, comment. Answer this question. what did you normalize today without noticing, and what do you think you can do to not normalize it as much tomorrow? Okay, this is a very concrete question, and please write a comment that answers this question.
I will do it too.
Okay, and I will do it too. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Free Palestine, free the entire planet, free ourselves.
Yeah.